Hey everybody, it's Eric Hayden here in the garden this morning. Got my favorite rose shirt on. Took the first part of the day off from work to finish up some gardening, and that's what this video is going to talk about. You know what to do in the garden, but do you actually do it when you should? We're going to talk a little bit about weeding. I mentioned a little bit ago that we had some issues with disease in the garden. We're going to cover that and briefly cover some of the tools I've been used for weeding. So the first things first, if you saw one of my last videos, I mentioned how leafed out we are in terms of the roses here in eastern North Carolina. It's the 13th of February and this Marlin's Day is fully leafed out. Not much I can do in terms of slowing it down, so not doing any pruning or fertilizing. We've certainly mentioned that, but as I was weeding in the gardens, I noticed that we were starting to get some disease, and I'm not quite sure if it's a combination of downy mildew or black spot. So what I did yesterday was I sprayed the roses with a combination of Manzate, that would be for the black spot, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but Alliate. It's a product that would control and if it had any downy mildew in the garden. The point of the video though is when you see something like that, you've got to jump on it. You can't wait to spray because it will only spread, and you can see it's on some of the other roses as well. So I certainly have a fungal disease. Always read the instructions. Those two products can be mixed together. The Alliate doesn't want any copper-based product mixed with it, so those two could be mixed together. So I sprayed last night. And again, so if you have some disease like this, you certainly want to jump on that. This is a rose that's close to a crescendo, so it's on more than one bush. You want to jump on that. We have cool, wet conditions the past couple days, and that's really allowed the disease to spread. So want to jump on that. But the point I'm trying to make is, not only do you want to spray right away, you've got to do the appropriate conditions, and hopefully you can tell from the roses blowing around, or you can hear the wind on the video. It's quite windy this morning, so first things first, know the conditions to spray in. So I certainly wanted to spray as soon as I could, but checking the forecast, today was not going to be the day to do it. It's forecast to be pretty breezy out, and it is breezy. So I jumped on that yesterday evening. If you haven't liked your local weather service internet site, I encourage you to do so. If you just go to weather.gov, weather.gov, you don't need the www or the http, just weather.gov. If you enter your city or zip code, you'll get a detailed forecast. And if you scroll down on the page, on the right hand side, there's something called an hourly weather graph, so you can plot when the winds are strong. And I certainly don't want to be spraying in these conditions. So again, if you have disease in the garden, you want to spray right away, but check your weather conditions. You don't want to spray right before it's going to rain. You don't want to spray when it's a windy weather out. I know this is all obvious things that you're probably thinking of, but you may not realize how much weather plays a role on what you do in the garden. So first things first, want to tackle the disease that's spreading in the garden. The second thing, weeding is going really well. My next video is going to be applying a pre-emergent. All these beds have been weeded. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is my 7th bed. So took a little time off this morning. I want to knock this out. The reason why I want to knock it out, we're going to have rain this evening. Most pre-emergents need to be watered in. So that gets back to my overall point. You know what you need to do. If you have disease, you know you need to spray. If you have weeds, you know you need to get those up before they go to seed and multiply. It's actually taking the time to do it. A garden like mine with over 40 rose bushes, it takes some time, but this is some consideration if you're just starting out growing roses. Maybe you start small and you only have a few bushes, so it doesn't take as much time in terms of maintenance in your garden. So you can see the rose beds are pretty clean, weed free. Anytime you put down a pre-emergent, those will not kill existing weeds. They only prevent future weeds from coming up. So first thing I had to do was get rid of the weeds. And one of the reasons why I'm doing a pre-emergent here in the south, these are planted on Fortuniana, most of them. And I planted them about 5 feet on center. So from the center of this bush to the center of that bush is about 5 feet. So these beds, I think it's 12 by 20 feet length width, are pretty big, and they require a lot of maintenance in terms of weeding. This is the first time I will have used a pre-emergent. I'm curious how much it'll help I hope it will. I'm trying to minimize as much as I do in the garden in terms of being efficient, so I can focus on those other things like spraying. And that's where I'll end this video. Just like a carpenter or a mechanic has the appropriate tools, you need the right tools in the garden. Here's the last bed I need to weed. A pure basic garden hoe is beautiful for getting those open areas in between bushes. So you can see I've got one there and I've got a bush there. So I can get this open area very quickly and efficiently. What I tend to do with the weeds after I hoe them up is shake off as much of the dirt as I can, and then when it's pretty much just root and weed, I just toss it to the side, and then I'll rake that up and put it into the compost pile. Now, I mentioned right tools. This is a nifty tool. Check out one of my prior videos. I go a little bit more in depth on this. This tool is very good for getting small spots. So I have drip irrigation here that you can see. I've got a line here, and I don't want to have a hoe accidentally take up that drip irrigation. So here you can see the pipe right there. So I can get right in between that real nice and neat. Or if I've got these weeds over by the rose bush itself, I can get in there, try not to disturb as much as I can. And again, I'm recording with one hand, pulling that weed up with another. So your basic tools are very helpful. Again, like a carpenter or mechanic has special tools, you need that in the garden. The hoe for the big areas, open areas, and a smaller tool like this is very useful for getting those weeds in between the bushes themselves, or even the roses itself. You can probably tell it's pretty misty, windy out here in the garden today. Once I finish up that last bed, I'm going to do that pre-emergent. We'll do a video on that probably tomorrow or the next day. We'll get that recorded. And I'm really curious how that pre-emergent does. I'm using something called Snapshot. We'll go into that here over the next couple videos. Comment, what are some of your favorite garden tools? How do you stick doing what you need to do? Again, gardens can take a lot of maintenance, but they're well worth it, and hopefully we'll have some blooms here to share with you, usually during the month of May here in Eastern North Carolina. Have a great day, everybody.